Hey friends, it's Jill here with the Hometown Homestead. If you're new, welcome. And if you've been here before, welcome back. Today I am doing my part for Canuary, or my first round for Canuary. We're going to be canning a 10-pound bone-in pork butt. Now, this is something that I love having on hand. Canned meat is an absolute staple for us, and it makes everything so much easier when I need a meal, a quick meal in a pinch. So I want to welcome you to Canuary. Thank 4 Jars for sponsoring. I'm a big fan of their lids and have been for a long time. And I just want to thank them for having us, as well as Leisa for putting together Canuary. This is one of my favorite collaborations, and last year I wasn't official. Today I am. I am so excited and grateful to be welcomed to this awesome lineup, and I want to thank y'all for stopping by. So let's get started on this 10-pound bone-in pork butt. So to get started, the first thing I'm gonna do, well, the second thing actually, my first move was to put on my apron, but my second move is to cut open this beast, and we're gonna get it out on the cutting board and then chop it up into 1.5 to 2 inch cubes. You can do it to the size of your liking. Just make sure that your sizes are consistent throughout the whole process. So instead of making you sit here and watch me trim this up, cut out the bone and gristle, and get it all done, I'm gonna put you on time lapse so you can see the process and enjoy what we're doing without having to listen to all of the sounds of my very busy house on a Saturday morning. So we'll get this done and I'll be right back. Okay, so we got the cutting wrapped up, and I did want to show you, while I do love fat because we've been eating the carnivore diet around here lately, this is just too much for canning. So I have a whole pile of trimmings over here. We might keep it and render it down for our own lard to use in cooking, but I do want you to be aware that you need to go ahead and trim off the excess fat. And I was able to get the bone out decently clean, but I might save this and boil it down for some soup or something else of the kind because there still is some good meat on here. I was just able to take my knife and follow the shape of the blade. One other thing you might have noticed during that time lapse, I did stop to sharpen my knife and it made things a lot faster. Usually my knife is pretty sharp. I thought I had just done it the other day, so I didn't do it before I started, but starting with the sharp knife will save you a ton of time. Now at this point, we're gonna go ahead and take this over to the stove, and I'm gonna get it browned up on all sides, sear it off before I put it in the jars. This is absolutely not a must. I actually didn't do it last time I did it. You can throw this raw chicken straight in your jars and You can throw this raw pork straight in your jars and process it as is. What you got, baby?
Oh, my apron.
Oh, pretty, your apron. So I could have done it that way just by throwing it in the jars raw and doing a raw pack, but I want to try the flavor of searing it off on the stove. So we're going to get it all seared off, and then we'll get it jarred up and thrown in the pressure canner here shortly. I'm using the Presto Digital Canner. The main reason that I'm doing this over my stovetop canner is because I'm headed out to watch one of my little guys play in a basketball game today. So I can set this pot and get everything rolling and then go watch the game, knowing safely that this canner will be totally fine here with somebody else watching it and the rest of my kiddos, because we have been having an absolute hard time with a tummy bug here lately. So 3 quarts of water goes in first. And there is a fill line in there to show you where that is. but that isn't really a problem to do it that way. Then we're gonna put our jars in. I'm using wide mouth, about half full of water, and that prevents them from floating up in the process. And this is the warming section of this canner. It takes care of warming the jars for you. So you just fill them all in. And then once it's warm, it'll beep and tell you that the jars are warm and you're ready to go. And then you go ahead and dump this extra water out into the sink. Or if you're making a broth or anything else, you can do that as well. But you do not need this extra water back in the canner like you might in a traditional canner itself. So we're gonna do 7 wide mouth pints in here. We're gonna get this thing rolling. Locking the lid on this is super easy. If you're new to canning and are familiar with an Instapot at all you have to do is put it on, twist it, shut the lid down, and turn the green knob. That's it. Now, you do wanna make sure that you do not have the weight on yet. It will tell you when to add this. So down here on the screen, it's set to pressure can. You can also water bath in this, so you wanna make sure you got the right setting. Then you hit the play button. It's gonna ask you the time. We're going for 1 hour and 15 minutes in our pints. We've got our jars in. It tells me right now to insert my jars. And now it says warming. Now, this canner itself is really, really simple. I really recommend it for people that are worried about the process of a regular pressure canner. That said, it is more expensive. Funny story about my canner. I actually was not in the market for this, but I cruise the Facebook marketplace for deals all the time. It's how I've gotten many of the things that I have. My dehydrator, for example, came from a friend who no longer needed it, so I got it about half price. This is the same story. I bought this along with a couple other pressure canning cookbooks from an older lady who thought she would be into canning, wasn't. Used this one time, still had all the packaging and paperwork on it. It actually still had some of the stickers on it that needed to be peeled off. And so I was able to bring it home at a steal. So if you're looking for a canner and cost is an issue, scan the marketplace, because even the canners that aren't digital, that's just the regular Presto or anything of that sort, you can often find on there really cheap. I was able to send one to a friend who was able to get a brand new one who had never been used for a really good deal. And then I have a local spot up here where people put their donations, and somebody had donated a Presto digital canner, not a digital, sorry, a regular Presto canner, and set it outside of the donation area, and I grabbed it for a friend who's also interested in canning. Now, of course, when you do that, you need to get your weights and your seals checked and all that stuff, but those things are so cheap to replace. So don't let cost be a reason that you don't get into canning when you can actually find some amazing deals if you just spend some time cruising the marketplace and ask your friends. I had somebody recently drop off tons of jars on my front porch because they were cleaning out their stash and didn't need them anymore. I didn't even know this lady, but a friend who knew me well knew that I was into canning, and so connections like that can happen. Don't ever put yourself out on canning because you're afraid you don't have all the supplies. So with that, we're getting our jars warm. We're gonna head back over to the stove and make our broth for these 7 jars, and we'll bring you back in just a minute when it's time to fill them up. We got our broth made. I did that by just adding some water to a cup of water for a tablespoon to 2 tablespoons of every amount of fat that was still in the pan. Now, we didn't have enough fat, in my opinion, so we added some more bacon fat, bacon grease, to the pan, and then added 7 cups of water just so I made sure I didn't run out of broth before I'm done with these jars. So I have that sitting here. It is beautiful. Well, I'll show you. It is beautiful, rich broth. So I did that by scraping the bottom of the pan and removing those brown bits that come when you actually sear off the meat. So now that that's done, I have a light on my canner. It beeped and it says fill jars. So that means everything's warm and we're ready to go. So we're gonna bring you down low so you can see the jars coming out, what I'm doing to dump them, how I'm making that work. And then we're gonna go ahead and get these filled and in the canner. Again, we twist the knob, we twist the lid, and we open it up, staying away from the steam. It's not super hot because it's just warming the jars. But I'm gonna take my lid and set it out of the way while we grab the jars. Taking my jar lifters, which you can use the old style if you like. I like these with the spring because they're just easier on the hand. You're gonna go ahead, grab a jar out. Ooh, I put a short one in the middle. So you have a nice steamy jar here. I'm gonna dump it right into my sink. So we're gonna get this all shoved down in here until we have 1 inch of headspace at the top of the jar. Now I don't want these super tight packed, but I also want to get as much meat as I can in every single jar to maximize the space. Now, as I'm filling up the jars, you're going to notice a major thing. I am messy. I spill over here. I spill on the stove. I spill everywhere. So that towel underneath is an absolute must. And I always need to have something handy to clean up what I have going on. Additionally, I love to use a spoon or keep one close to take out any extra broth that I have over my 1 inch headspace, which you just saw me measuring there. I love that little plastic tool. It helps me debubble, and it also has little stair steps on the side to measure. Now, after that, especially doing something as fatty as my pork here, make sure to wipe down the rims with a vinegar and then put your lid on and your ring. Again, not too tight, just finger tight. Now, one tip that I found with this Presto digital canner is if you take the hot water jar out before you add in your full jar, then you're able to use space easily in there and you don't have to worry about being able to get to your next jar. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull 2 jars so I can get them both full and back in the hot water. I find that using this specific canner next to a sink is really helpful. But when I'm canning other things with it, like I've canned up potatoes and those kinds of things, I like to keep the water that's in there. I just pour it into a measuring cup directly, and then that's my hot water to go back in with when I need to actually get some water back in the jar. So that is nice warm water. It is probably the amount that you would need when you're adding things of that sort. So it's nice to be able to have that warm water accessible if you need it. When we're using something with broth though, we don't need it. So that's why I'm dumping it into the sink. Now we're gonna go back in and get these debubbled. Making sure to get all those air bubbles out. Now I'm gonna add my 4 jars lids. I've always been, sorry, I've got kiddos in the background. I've always been a bit particular on how things look, so I like the logo on the jar itself to match up with the front of the jar, whatever decoration is on there. I have a mix of canning jars here, like I was saying before, that have been given to me. Some of them have pretty designs on them, and some of them just have names if they're older. But both of them, I like to have the actual 4 jars logo as well as my canning jar logo facing the same direction for the shelf. Completely obsessive and unnecessary, but you know, I like things to look pretty. Now at this point, you can see just how tightly 7 wide mouth jars fits in this canner. You can also put 8 if you do a narrow mouth, but that's up to you. Putting on the lid is really easy. Again, you just set it down, twist, go ahead and put the little green handle down, give it a twist as well. And then the only thing that you have to do is go down front and hit the play button so it knows that you are ready to move on to the next step after it actually has completed the warm up and you fill the jars. Now I'm bringing you in here because we have 9 minutes left on our venting setting, and I wanted you to see exactly how loud this machine will get. This is it. It's steaming off right now, and once these 9 minutes are done, it'll tell me it's time to put on the weight, and at that point, all you ever hear is a bubble. So if you're in a house where you have to worry about volume, maybe an open floor concept or something, this is one you might want to consider. And again, scoop the Facebook Marketplace to see if you can find some awesome details on a canner. So at this point, the screen is beeping and telling me it's time to put my regulator on. So again, I'm just gonna take this little guy right here. There's a spot where it goes right here on the back. Place it over the top. And as soon as it comes to pressure, all the sound will go away. And I'll bring you back just so you can hear exactly what it looks like when this canner is in action. Oh, I did forget to mention, once you put the weight on, you have to push the play button again so it knows that it can actually start the process. So it's gonna get up to pressure and then start our hour and 15-minute countdown.
I'm bringing you in just so you can listen as it comes up to pressure. Once it does, then you will hear the silence and how quiet this machine can be.
At this point, this is as loud as this canner's ever gonna get, and it's gonna start its hour and 15-minute countdown to pressure can this meat perfectly. Now, I am gonna take somebody upstairs to take a nap. Who's that gonna be?
Me.
You. We're gonna give her a nap, and then I'm gonna sneak out. My mother-in-law's coming up, and I'm gonna go watch my second son playing his first basketball game ever. Normally we would take everybody, but we have had the nastiest bout of sickness at our house, and I just don't think everybody else is ready to roll. So this canner is safe enough for me to leave it and let it be without worrying about what's going on. Basically just like an Instapot, same setup, just made for canning. So we're gonna let this go. It's automatically gonna kick into its cool down method on its own. There's nothing you have to do to make that happen. So this will take 2.5, maybe 3 hours. I'll see how long it takes completely. I'll mark the time right now. It is 2 p.m. where I'm at, and I'll let you know what time it is when we are ready to take the jars out. So we'll be back soon. Hey, we just got back from the ball game. Unfortunately, it didn't go our way, but it was a great first basketball game. It is now 5:13, so that took 3 hours and 15 minutes for it to can as well as come down from pressure. Now, the actual venting has already happened. It's already completed its cool down process. So at this point, we just have to take off the lid, and I'm gonna let the jars sit in there before I pull them all the way out.
Okay, pure confession here. Obviously, what you're watching is not what I just said. I didn't let the jars sit in there at all. But the advantage of this machine is that it had cooled all the way down, so my jars actually all still sealed. Even though I totally forgot what I was doing. You'll see my husband behind me in a minute. He was telling the craziest story, had me completely off my game, and I pulled them straight out, but it wasn't a problem at all. All of my jars still sealed and worked out perfectly.
That is gonna wrap it up for us. The meat is out of the canner. I hope you guys have enjoyed some tips that I've shared with you today, and I am excited to see you back again toward the end of the month. Thank you again to Leisa from SuttonsDaze and for 4 Jars for sponsoring. Don't forget, guys, all you have to do is watch the entire playlist, comment every day or whenever you have time. Under each individual video, give us a like and subscribe and a thumbs up. We appreciate all of that. It helps out channels more than you know, especially tiny little channels like mine. So thank you all for stopping by the Hometown Homestead. I hope you had a great time, and I hope to see you back soon. Bye, friends.